You have kind of two issues there. You have one, not a lot of funding is going towards marketing to begin with. And then you also have the like, oh, it's social media. Like my intern could do it. I can either DIY it myself and then I'm sending random automated messages to people because I clicked the wrong button, or I can work with an agency, but like that's going to come at a really big price. So my goal in starting to build out.
Before we begin the podcast, I have a super simple ask for you. If you could subscribe to the channel, that would help us reach more business owners every single day. Thank you. Let's begin. All right, set it for recording. All right, Maddie, you are a social media strategist who shares tips and tricks online. And I'd say the staple of your content is the 5-minute marketing podcast or episodes. So you're given one last 5-minute marketing episode. What are you going to say?
Ooh, I would say that so often when it comes to social media, I think there's so much information out there. It's amazing. I think that it makes it really accessible, but there is this sense of I literally have to do everything. I have to be on every single platform and I have to be making day in the life content and trending content and talking to camera and all of these different things. And it feels like a lot of noise. And so a lot of the times I think business owners and individuals who are looking to create a brand in the online space feel this like I have to do it all. And I think a lot of the times you have to come back to what is the end result and what is the path that makes sense with my schedule, my resources, what I'm actually speaking about. So what mediums or what types of content does that actually fit? And sort of forge your own path or forge a strategy, create a system and kind of means to execute on that actually works for your business and not what someone who has 100,000 followers and, hit TikTok at a really great time is telling you to do. So I really go into that, or I think about that extensively when I work with new businesses or people who are brand new to the space. And I'm like, it's amazing that you love what they're doing, but I love to make the analogy to going to the gym because it's like you show up to the gym on your first day, you are not going to be as confident. You are not going to feel as at ease or as strong as the person who has been there for 6 years. So stop trying to compare their 6-year journey to your day one experience. And it's no different when it comes to content creation, social media, anything like that. Your day one is your day one, and you have to figure out what works for you.
Are you a business owner looking to simplify your marketing, make your marketing consistent? It makes sense. Marketing can be a hassle, a headache. That's why I'm here and have a gift for you to make your marketing simple. It's a simple sheet with 15 questions to find out who you need to target, who you are in relation to your clients, and really iron out what your services do for your clients. It's a simple way to create unity with your marketing and understand where you want to go. If you're ready to simplify your marketing, go to services.tuckercmdigital.com/#gift or check out the link in my bio. The other thing is kind of simplicity on that too, because I think a lot of business owners, like you mentioned, kind of want to go all over. But like just doing one thing and maybe even having 1,000 followers is often better than the vanity metrics of having 10,000 followers that aren't gonna do whatever.
One for sure. And also that it's going to change. And when you're in different seasons of your business, like you have more time, energy, resources to lean into certain things. And also looking and seeing what's working. Like a lot even for myself, when I first kind of dove into my business outside of when I left my full-time job, I was like Instagram and TikTok and like, that's going to be my thing. And slowly but surely, like LinkedIn has opened so many more doors for me as a business owner, as an individual. And so as much as I still have my hands in the other platforms and I work more so for clients in the other platforms, personally, like I have said, okay, if I have time, that's where I need to be spending my energy. And so it's sort of also taking that into account as well.
It's also a really good point because you have 2,000 followers or so?
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, like
Hmm.
you do not need many followers on LinkedIn. I have 600 and I have 3 sales calls today alone. Like I think people are just baffled when like very little can get you very far.
Yes. And I deeply regret when I, like, a few years ago was looking in the job industry and like feeling like not like I just felt like I was throwing spaghetti at the wall and nothing was happening. And then, like, fast forward to now, I have had more actual job offers from posting and connecting on LinkedIn than I did when I was applying to like 8 or 10 jobs a day. And so I think that's the other thing, exactly what you're saying. It's like you only need three really good connections, three like times when your content or your message like gets in front of the right person, as opposed to other scenarios where like I've had a video hit 1 million. Do I get any emails or phone calls or messages from it? No. Is it an instant hit of like, ooh, like this is a buzz and it feels really good because the likes are rolling in? Like, absolutely. But if you're actually looking at the conversion and what that does, it's not quite the same. So I think that is the beauty of LinkedIn, and you do have to get out of that mindset of like, I want to like continue to get more and more followers. It's like, no, actually look at the community and group of people you have. I always stress that with people. Like, in your effort to grow your audience, don't forget about the people you currently have, because those are your raging fans. Those are the people who will say your name in a room you're not a part of. So don't lose sight of those as you look to climb and grow and reach new people.
Have you ever heard of Darren Lee?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so he's like the podcast guy. So his entire thing is he has a Instagram and he's like, I get no referrals out of it. It's just for fun. And he gets a ton of views off of it. Like I want to say he has 11,000 followers on Instagram, but he gets nothing. Nothing. It's all LinkedIn and he has, I want to say the same as you, like 2, 3,000 followers. So it's like, really got to look at that. Really got to look at
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
I also want to point out like niche is very different as well because especially
Mm,
if you're in something like so for example, I'm in specifically SEO and I really heavy in on the websites. People are going to come to me for websites and then want to buy more elsewhere. But that means I'm not going to get a lot of followers because it's websites. Whereas like if you do something along the lines of I do digital marketing, everyone's going to come to you but no one's going to want to buy from you because you don't have that thing that stands out.
yes, totally. And it's almost the when you are sort of a generalist, because I think I've definitely struggled with that in my career from time to time, where I've worked in capacities where it's like, we're a very small team, you're wearing a billion hats, and it's like, yeah, sure. If push comes to shove, I can absolutely design a website. I've done it before. I could figure it out. I could like Google and do all of that. But at the end of the day, we fall victim to that mindset of like, oh, but if I pick one thing to niche down and narrow in on, I'm going to lose all of my customers. And it's like, well, actually that's not the case. You're going to, hone in and find the people who are actually looking for what you offer. And then 9 times out of 10, like I've had situations where we're working in this capacity, and then I make reference like, oh yeah, like I do also offer this in a more a la carte style. And then they're like, oh my gosh, amazing, like let's do that too. And so it's sort of like kind of niche down to find the right people to then open up those other opportunities, other possibilities, things like that.
It also protects you because you only do what you're good at. Like then I suck at social media. Like I don't want to touch that. Like that's not my thing. So it's way better for me when I'm like, listen, I know you're asking for social media, but that's not something I want to do because it also builds trust. Because then they're not like, oh, can you do this? And if you say yes, they trust that you know what you're doing with it.
Yes.
So there's a lot of externalities there that are really, really good. I'm curious, the one that's been, I guess, plaguing me a lot is pricing because I was always afraid to raise prices. I was curious, what how does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, that is always something that I struggle with because I think my soft spot is always for like the business owners and small business owners because I love working with small business owners. It's sort of how I got my start in the industry. I worked with someone who was super small and, we grew it to a huge online presence. But at the same time, with that comes like they don't typically have a large wallet for marketing. And I think so you have kind of two issues there. You have one, not a lot of funding is going towards marketing to begin with. And then you also have the like, oh, it's social media. Like my intern could do it. Like it's just, you're just creating graphics. And it's like, that's like a fraction of the pie. Um, so I really look at it and I'm trying to approach it, and especially as I'm building into my business more and more, like ways where I can provide accessible resources. So it's like a jumping off point that provides an initial head start for them where they can get their own footing and confidence. And then we can work together on a more like higher ticket one on one capacity.
Yeah, I really like that because you kind of have a low ticket offer that gets them in the door, helps them, and then you have a high ticket. I was actually looking at your website. It's what like because you have a do it yourself offer and you have a done for you
Mm-hmm.
offer. And
Mm-hmm.
then do you also have lead magnets or no?
I do. Yeah. I
Okay.
have two lead magnets that funnel into sort of more like content realms. So I'm actually about to
Hmm.
launch the content lab, which is going to be it's like my 6 step process that walks you through kind of creating content from learn, strategize, organize, create, publish, and then analyze. And it sort of walks you through that entire process. Um, because I think a lot of the times people have great ideas and they are capable. It's just you set out to build a business. You
Hmm.
set out to impact in whatever medium that is. Like you did not wake up one Monday morning and go, I want to become a content creator. Not a lot of like that's a rare kind of crossover that happens, but it is more and more become an expectation of founders and business owners to really kind of put on that content creation social media cap. So I'm hoping this resource provides a sense of I have these ideas, I just need to streamline, organize, and like get them to execution. Because there's always dropped balls along the way, whether it's like I'm a super creative person, but the concept of organizing anything is just not my forte. Or I need to figure out like how do I even come up with ideas to begin with? And so like that person might really love the strategize section where I walk through kind of questions about what to ask to come to those ideas. So that has been in the works and it's launching hopefully next week. I have it in beta with a bunch of different people right now to get some feedback and really hear that it's kind of touching on those pain points that I really want it to have an impact on. So that's one capacity. And then the other big branch of my business and what I do is chat marketing. So many chat. Um, I noticed that I sort of, it was kind of thrown around at my last job. I worked kind of in the online business space. And I was like, sure, I'll figure it out. Like, let's do it. And we implemented it and saw insane results in regards to just lead gen and sales and just community engagement and that sort of instant gratification element that you're able to provide when you have an audience of 500,000 on Instagram and your DM inbox is overflowing. But at the same time, the barrier to entry for some of these businesses to add this to their strategy is like, I can either DIY it myself and then I'm sending random automated messages to people because I clicked the wrong button, or I can work with an agency, but like that's going to come at a really big price. So, my goal in starting to build out some of these resources is giving either business owners or even social media managers who want to add another skill set to what they offer clients, sort of resources in that capacity.
Business owners, Do you wish marketing wasn't so time consuming, wasn't such a hassle? Well, that's where Tucker CM Digital comes in. We take the stress and time out of marketing. We generate clients through the funnel we've used on over 110 clients. Our goal is to keep marketing simple. If you want to take your time back and stop the chaos of marketing from flooding your business, check out services.tuckercmdigital.com or check the link in my bio. I like that. Have you looked into coaching at all, like group coaching?
You know what? I am only, what is it, September? I'm like a little over 4 months into fully working for myself. So I'm like fresh off the like I'm kind of going along with the flow and sort of establishing things more and more as I go and figuring out in what ways I want to scale. Do I want to have a team and do the agency model or not? I'm really excited about the opportunity or concept of coaching. Specifically, I'm planning. So with the content lab that's launching soon, that'll be more so kind of like done on your own. But next winter, or maybe like February, I'm thinking of doing like a live round. So it'd be a 6 week weekly calls where we'll go through each module and it'll just have a little bit more of that like one-on-one capacity where I can review content and say like, this is great, but let's try a different hook or something like that. Because it is one where if you get a lot of inbound requests, and I'm really fortunate at the moment where I'm getting a lot of like, hey, can we work together? And I don't admittedly have enough time in the day. I as much as I would love to, and I love what I do, I'm very fortunate in that regard. You're not able to kind of work with as many people as possible. So I would love to kind of do something in that capacity for sure in regards to coaching.
Smart. I know I mentioned Darren Lee earlier. He has a coaching program, and that's basically a sales funnel to his high ticket. Is he does done for you into coaching, into sorry, low ticket into medium ticket, so coaching, and then high ticket. So it just goes all the way up. And it's like a ladder. Because when you first start, you can get like 50% there, and then you can get 80% there. When someone doing it for you, you're there. And so it's just walking up the ladder. And so that might be a really interesting thing to look into.
Yeah, definitely.
On the kind of the coaching program, if you were thinking about it, you might also want to look at one-to-one calls, because I know that does really well. I've been on a few coaching programs. You add one-to-one calls, and it's night and day difference as well.
Yeah, I do some strategy one to one at the moment. I think for some people, I think you almost need to build it, in my experience, as like a package, because I think a lot of the times it takes a very specific person to have that one singular one-on-one, and then you're like passing the baton and they are running it to the finish line. Like I have had both extremes. I've had that where I go on their Instagram and they're like doing every single thing we talked about, and they really just needed that like, let's, lock in some ideas. Let me give you a little. Sometimes people honestly just need that, like when you were learning how to ride a bike and your parent just had their hand on your back, and it was not doing anything, like that bike would have tipped over, but you just had that feeling of like, yes, you're on the right path, like go, kind of, you got this. So I think some people really just need that. And it's like, I love being a cheerleader. I love empowering you to just kind of run with your ideas. Other people, I think I do get on the call and I'm like, oh, okay, we would benefit from a bi-weekly or even monthly, because I think they need a little bit more of that accountability and like guide on the side training where they can sort of check in. So I think it is one of those, trying to figure out like what makes the most sense for you as a business, what makes the most sense where, the client is getting the best transformation and the best just client experience.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. On the pricing thing as well, I've been increasing my prices so that I can give a more personable experience. Like, just for that reason. And people love it. Like, I want to say I doubled my prices, and overnight people were like, "Oh, so you can work one-on-one with me now?" Just everyone was for it. And so it's really interesting when you add that personable piece.
And I think when you when you do increase, there is a level of like skin in the game that makes it feel a little bit like your time is valuable and my time is valuable. And like we are here to make moves and like find ways to move the needle. So I think that's also really smart because you've probably heard it's like the $500 client who's like, wait, can you do this and this and this and like asks a billion questions and like second guesses every single thing you do. And then the like $5,000 client who's like, where do I send the check? But I do think there is a level of like, I know what I can deliver and I want to deliver this to you. I think it's like, you got to trust me that I'm going to work incredibly hard and we're going to work together to get like a really great return on your investment.
Yeah. That's a really hard thing though. Keep in mind, I'm a college student, so when I raise prices and people are like, "Oh, oh, do I trust you?" Like it's really, really hard to get that same reaction. Uh,
Yeah. Yes. I mean, kudos to you. I think half of raising your prices is just reminding yourself, like, I think it's so much of a mind game too.
it is. It truly
Of
is.
like, I had that where the first time I was like, okay, here's a contract. Like, this is, I know, like, cost of goods because I've got to hire creators and we're working in this capacity. And, you have a little bit of that, like, okay, like, this is like, what's going on here? But then when it pays off and you have a super viral video or you're like, you get to send over those metrics for the first month and you're like, yes, this was our growth rate for month one. You have that like, yes, you know what? I just got to trust myself. Like they trust me. I got to trust me.
Yeah, it's a lot of anxiety. It's just that ambient like I'm scared. I I'm really curious. Do you do case studies as well?
I do. So yes, I do some case studies. Admittedly, I am in a like that first. I give you kudos if you're in school and doing all of this.
Oh, don't even worry. I'm
Just
probably
like
dropping out. It's fine.
I don't know. I feel like as the parent in me is supposed to be like, no, like do stay the course. But you know how it is. It's
Yeah.
like every day is a new like, let's see as much as I can do. I would love to do more and more case studies. I have a lot of case studies up here.
Mhm.
I need to get them actually like pen to paper examples for sure.
Okay, this is going to sound really interesting. So I do one of my case studies is actually my lead magnet. And the reason being is I walk them through exactly what I did. And so not only is it valuable to them, it proves that I know what I'm doing because I can show the metrics along with it. So it might be a really, really good lead magnet for you as well.
Yeah, that's that. I'm interested in from their angle
Mhm.
because I think also I don't know if you experience this, but like as someone who's in the industry, when I down like my level of expectation for a lead magnet is like here. Like I'm like I want, which is I definitely have like too high of expectations, but on their from the downloadee, I'll call them that, with the case study, is it they can apply those they can like are you also providing like little like, oh, I made this switch,
Mhm.
it resulted in like the search increasing by whatever, and so it's like tangible tips and then you're showing like how it
That's
works.
exactly it.
Got
Like
it.
I break it down
Cool.
really simply and I give like probably all the low hanging fruit is a good way to put it. And I give them all of that in the case study.
Hmm. You just said low hanging fruit, and it got me thinking of. I'm curious how you felt because I think I see like two sides of the coin where some people who I'm in the industry with, I think they can look at me and be like, "Oh my god, like you give away so much information for free. Like there's so much content going out and all of that." But at the same time, I think it's like for me at least, that's a really big core value of my business is just like the accessibility and that angle. So I don't know if I will ever change that, but I'm curious can you talking about like the low hanging fruit and like giving that away? Where do you typically like to draw the line between like the paywall or like free slash like what are you giving away for free, or if you do an intro call and you know how you always get questions where you're kind of like, that's like sort of a paid question, but like should I answer it? I'm just curious how that falls in your mind.
I don't. Like flat, I just give everything away for free. Because the best way that I've heard it is you give everything away for free and you get paid for the implementation.
Mm.
Because
I also think it's like people come back, and it's like you've created such a, like if you're giving them away things for free and they're doing the things you say for free, at some point they're going to hit a wall, or there's going to be some, whether it's time, they've run out of time and they can't, they're scaling too quickly and they're like, we need to outsource this, or they're like, I don't understand, like it's gotten too complex, it's past the point of my knowledge, and they're going to come to you versus the person they do a cold Google search for, like social media strategist Google search, the first person that comes up, like, are they going to trust them more? Are they going to trust the person where they're like, oh my God, they've gotten my business this far. Like now I want to use them to take it to the next level.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly that. Like I only do high ticket right now. And so me giving everything away for me, it's not costing me anything. So I just might as well.
Yeah.
You might run into the issue of if you give everything away in your paid course, then you're going to run into issues.
Right. Yeah. But what's interesting is, and this is sort of where the kind of my thought came from, and I'm curious what you think. A lot of the times people save a video here and there, and it's like, yes, sure, someone could sit and binge all of my content. They could watch every single video. They'd probably get sick of me, but they could do that, take notes or whatever. The concept of the content lab that I was sort of leaning into is like, if you like my videos, this is basically a structured, more organized with actual tangible, I call them lab work assignments throughout it, to have, so that you can actually like implement those moments that you feel like, oh, this is a really great video, I learned something. It's like, okay, but I'm talking about this. How are you going to actually apply that to your own strategy or your own X, Y, or Z? So that was my thought there. But it is, it's definitely top of mind, where I'm like, this is such a great topic. Like people are really interested in this. I do talk about it in the program. Ooh, where do I draw the line?
Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea. Like I'm not the person to ask on that front.
I mean, I think it's funny because I think we all are sort of like, it's so case by case scenario. I think
It is. Everything's case by case. I know I saw that on your website. What was it? It was something along the lines of like, you don't put on a shoe or something along those lines. Shoe sizes or something.
Sorry, what was that?
There was something on your website of like, it needs to be unique to you, and I don't remember what it was.
Oh, probably. I probably, honestly, my website is probably due for a refresh, but yeah, it's like, not, I mean, I just, nothing is like a one size fits all. Like everything in life is specific to you. Any piece of advice in any capacity or facet of your life, you sort of have to like take it in and let it resonate in the capacities that make the most sense, and sort of like let go of what doesn't. And I think, social is no different.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's so unique, especially on social, because, well, it's not formulaic in almost any capacity, aside from the fact of I can make content. That's about it. Like you can formulate different ways to come up with ideas for content, but aside from that, what are you really going to do? Because it has to be specific to the person and to the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's my bigger issue I have, is when you see a lot of people who are like, oh, like if you're not making content, like you just need to watch this video or buy this course, and like you're going to get 90 pieces of content in 20 minutes. Because it's like, yes, exactly what you said, like business specific, industry specific. And then also like every day we wake up, like the world and the, like how we are living and pop culture and anything going on is going to be different as well. And that has probably more than ever such a stake in how things are going to perform as well. Because, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but approval processes in social play such a role in this too. As we just saw, like we had Brat Summer and then Demure became really big. And it's in a way like if you've got a lengthy approval process and your content is finally going live this week, like I hate to be the person that like says Demure is dead, but the peak and the cycle of like when it hit its apex has kind of passed. And so that's the other thing that I get really worked up about when people are like, oh, just like plan 3 months of content, schedule it, and you're done. Because it's like, well, I mean, if you look at the last 4 years, we've had a ton of different world events. So you want to be conscious of like what's going on, language, and I just don't think that it's the most successful way to go about it. I very much steer people towards kind of like a two-prong method. So you have your evergreen content that is literally not going to change. Like me making a video about like, this is what a lead magnet is. And like, this is why you should use it. I could probably post that video now or in a month or two. So I have like that bucket of content. And then the more pop culture present tense, oh, you know, TikTok released this and this is how it's going to majorly affect your search on it, or creator search insights is something that you should be using now. And like, this is how it pertains. So I kind of have these two buckets, and that is how I can kind of get ahead and like plan. And I'm not like flying totally by the seat of my pants, but then I have opportunities to stay relevant and timely in what I'm putting out.
Is that because you have two Instagram accounts, correct?
Yes.
Is that the reason you have the two?
No. So I have my whole business, Live Like Mad. And then I have had random success here and there as just like more so of a creator in the space. I've been kind of lucky to have I continue to work in that capacity. As a creator, I've done like a few different, viral series. I did a big series in New York called Date Ideas That Aren't Just Dinner. I think the whole series probably has several million views. And so I sort of used that as like kind of a separation of personal and work, just in case if I want to scale to an agency or have team members, I don't want it to like literally just be my name as the brand. And then also I like having another outlet in more of a creator capacity where I can test and try a little bit and say like, oh, like ASMR style vlogs are doing really well. Like, how can we incorporate that? Or let me test a different series or something like that. That's sort of the differentiation there.
Yeah, it's like the figure it out kind of thing where you're not testing it on your clients.
Right. You're like, oh, okay, this, or honestly, just, I always say like, you need to have your own account or an account that's like not super, like make or break. So it's like Instagram releases a new feature. Like I'm not going to test that on my client's page or like a really like important page. I'm like, oh, cool. Like I'll try this with my family and friends who are like, oh, who knows what Maddie's doing right now. So like that sort of capacity as well.
That's smart. I was kind of curious on the Instagram topic as well. I was talking to Alex Andresen, and he's sorted as social media, not really, but he seems to think that on Instagram specifically, being more flashy, if you will, gets more views, gets more people engaged. Whereas on like LinkedIn, for example, it's a lot more technical. What's your experience with that?
What would you, or do you have any kind of examples of just flashy? I'm curious. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with like the definition.
You know, like the 18-year-olds that like have a Bugatti and then are just all around Dubai, like that kind of flashy. Because that describes Alex perfectly.
Got it. Okay. I think it's so interesting how things kind of evolve too, because I would say like Instagram still has the most like curation of it all. I think there's a level of like, we're never going to get past the like, what does your grid sort of look like? I think we're moving away from that the most we ever have. But like when you go to a TikTok profile, I never think like, how do the covers of these videos like all line up? It's not a thought. Even with clients' accounts, like we're not sitting there like, ooh, like how does this look? It's never been about on TikTok. It's never been about like the overarching curation of videos. It's always been like a content first. Like how does the video actually perform? I think Instagram is moving over to that realm. I think it's sort of the most, I hate to use the word like OG of it, but like you don't, the early adapters of TikTok, I think we're seeing more and more are now kind of going into LinkedIn more so than just sort of like sticking around. I think like Instagram, your audience has been there kind of like the longest. And so they feel the most kind of like stuck in like what it once was. So I think that does make sense. I mean, if you think about like the original or when Instagram was at its peak, it was like the square and how do your squares line up and you're kind of curating that image about it. And I think with TikTok, we've sort of moved into like, what is the actual story? What's the takeaway? I think that's why we saw that like huge peak in like educational content on the platform, especially during COVID, of like, what's the takeaway? What am I getting from watching this? And then I think LinkedIn follows a similar sort of trajectory as that, where it is very much like such a resource, or it's becoming more and more of like a means to connect. But I think like, I mean, I find actually because I'm on LinkedIn more than ever, I listen to less podcasts than I probably used to because I might watch a video or read something or go down the rabbit hole where someone interesting posts something and is like, join my newsletter. And then I'm on their newsletter and I'm rereading old newsletters. So it's sort of like a means to finding really cool thought leaders in the space where suddenly I'm like, oh, I might have in the past listened to a lot more podcasts, but now I'm getting like really great newsletters from these people. And that's where I'm getting that kind of like educational time blocks of the week from.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. Because Instagram also comes off as more of a landing page, if that makes sense. Like if you think of it,
Yes,
whereas TikTok, it's just kind of your For You page. That's really
for sure. And I think like LinkedIn, I don't personally get a ton of like the landing page vibes because I find it really hard to like look at older content on LinkedIn. It's actually interesting how the other platforms have sort of changed how your brain thinks about those, because it's like if I want to go to someone's page and like watch videos, like the UX is a little like awkward to navigate and such. So I do think it is interesting because it does really feel like they want you to chronologically like get on someone's profile and go that way in a way that you're like scrolling through everything. You're not getting like a square of all the different posts where you can easily tap in and out and stuff such like that.
true. True. LinkedIn is also a lot more slower paced. I feel like on LinkedIn, I'll take the time to read longer posts, whereas if I'm on TikTok or Instagram, it's just like next, right? So there's also that.
Yes.
There's a whole host of things on there.
Yeah, what's interesting is we were kind of having a conversation about this where we all spend, or I at least spend, rightfully so, because it's part of my job, but so much time thinking about the Instagram caption. And I wanted to like, I was like, ooh, it'd be so interesting to like go down the street and survey people and be like, do you actually read Instagram captions anymore? Like I would be so interested in that metric because it's like so, and I know this is another side tangent, but like more than ever, those reels where it's like some statement and then it's like read the caption for more, like that is very big. And I assume in those cases, like, yes, you're going to see a higher number of people who are actually reading the caption. But I think if you look at like what we once used Instagram for, where it might have been like a really thought provoking caption, you're not, I don't think as many people are reading in that capacity. Whereas on LinkedIn, because you do have more of that like equal split and honestly more so just text based posts, you're gonna see it like you're your words are actually going to be read in that platform.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. LinkedIn, LinkedIn is just a very unique platform compared to the other social medias, and it's partly just because it's
Mm-hmm.
business based.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious to see how that plays out in the coming years. Have you seen also LinkedIn being used as like a dating app? Have you seen those trends?
Oh God.
Yeah, that was kind of my reaction to it.
I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's like I still feel like it is interesting to navigate, especially with the addition of video and their push towards video, because I've been fortunate where I've connected with team members from LinkedIn and they're like video, 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 video. So as a person who's like in the video world, I love it, but I also think there's a level of blurriness when it comes to professionalism and um video at times. Like I think you can do your standard, like, here I am, like this is talking head content and I'm presenting facts and details and tips and tricks and stuff like that. But I also know that like LinkedIn has done a push towards like day in the life content. And I think there is this weird, I've at least felt this pull of like, I'm so much of an open book. Like I think it's something that I think is beautiful about the social media platforms. Like love and hate them at the same time, but I do think like I've had the opportunity to connect with insanely interesting, cool people, people I view as mentors who probably don't even know that I view them as like a parasocial mentor. But there is something a little tricky or just a little like, oh, I don't know how to navigate that with being like, welcome to a day in my life. Like, here's me in my kitchen, like making coffee on LinkedIn. And I don't know if that will change, but I think I also am like, ooh, if we add that, do we increase the like slide into someone's DMs and like ask them out? Like, I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
like kind of a slippery slope. Um,
Yeah, I'm not a huge
but
fan
that's
of it at all.
interesting.
At all because it'll cause problems, right? Because where do I draw the line between work and personal? Like I
Yeah, and I think that's what I have enjoyed about LinkedIn is it's like I can come on and know like this is what it is, because I think more than ever there's so much discourse of like the founder story and like the connection with the founder, like sell the founder story as opposed to like sell your product, but more so sell the turmoil and wins and struggles of like being a founder. And I think like there is something nice about LinkedIn with it being so like cut and dry, like it's professional, it's business, like how do you want to be viewed in the workplace? I feel like now though I'm gonna be like needing to read a few articles on this like date. I'm like, I'm sure there's a Reddit thread that's so funny about dating on LinkedIn or being asked out on dates on
there
LinkedIn.
is I haven't looked too much into it. I'm kind of curious to see. Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Where so I'm here for authenticity coming back in terms of just LinkedIn and everything because the last 3 4 years everything seems so I want to say like not really organic. It's heavily processed. Whereas like
Mm.
now this Gary Vaynerchuk style of follow me along is kind of coming back. I'm curious, how do you think that plays in? Where do you think that fits within all these puzzle pieces?
Yeah, I think I have always felt like as someone who provides a service, like at the end of the day, you're working with me as a human being. You're not necessarily just buying a water bottle or something like that. So I do think that there is something to who am I as a person? Like we're going to have to get on calls if we work on an ongoing basis in a very one-on-one capacity, like I kind of want to there's a level of like we should vibe to a certain extent. So I do think that's important in regards to just like us another maybe like facet of nurture or building trust. It's like, okay, you know what you're talking about, you can provide results, but also do I like talking to you? Do we get along? Do you have like a personality that I enjoy? So I think like that is part of it. I also do like the kind of like come along with me in regards to breaking down some of the like barriers to entry for people who might not have access to that information in other capacities. I think that's one of like the best things hands down to date that happened with TikTok is the knowledge that people had access to that might not have previously had access to is incredible. So I think there is something to be said about having access to these mentors or people who, normally you might have to read a book and like, a book is so heavily edited and like they're giving you like the angle they want you to have versus in this capacity you might see them like at an event or hear like a little tidbit or piece of advice that you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. So I think there is a little bit of that like accessibility from a what's possible in the world of careers or networking or something like that too.
It also doesn't set unreal expectations. Whereas if it's processed, you kind of get more of almost everyone it seems speaks perfectly. Whereas that's clearly not the case, right?
Mm.
If you're following
Mm-hmm.
around, you get all of those, I guess, verbal tics, all of the mannerisms, all of the little things that you wouldn't pick up on. And so you get a more realistic idea of the person.
Yeah, 100%. And realistic like look into what it takes in certain capacities too of like I think there is this double edge like as a business owner, you want to be real and show like I'm waking up at 6 and I am like logging on and I'm not getting done until this time and that kind of thing and all of that. And there does feel like there is a line where you're like, ooh, I don't want like my clients to ever take this in a wrong way, but I am showcasing the transparency because I think, a lot of things can be glamorized of like, oh, I think that comes up a lot in like work from home where it's like, ooh, work from home is like the best case scenario. Like you never have to like go into an office or anything like that. But on the flip side, I've never worked in an office and I've had to do a ton of like outside of even when I had my 9 to 5 networking and just like finding communities to join because I literally would sit in a room by myself all day long. And so it's sort of kind of showcasing that the grass is always greener and like what you see someone doing, it looks like this picturesque, like everything is perfect. They have all of their shit together. And then it's like, well, in reality, like there's always going to be something that comes along with that as well.
Yeah. I think it's the other thing with Instagram as well, about bringing it back to like the 19-year-old in Dubai and whatever, right? They're always going to show an idealized version. And I can tell you from knowing quite a few people like that, they do that for an hour a day and the rest of the time is working. Like,
Yeah.
that,
Totally. And I think we're maybe seeing a shift towards a certain level of authenticity. I think we're potentially moving into like it like kind of at the end of the day like we are all human and we're not everything is not going to be perfect 100% of the time, but I also think, if you are someone who is going through a rough patch or you hate your job and you're not in a great mind space, there is something to be said about watching like kind of like would you rather watch the person who's real and who's talking about like, yeah, you know what, today kind of sucked and like this is why, but I did this and I got over it, or that like aspirational, they live in Paris and they work 2 hours a day because they're a digital nomad and like there is sort of that, there's comfort in that as well. So I wish I could say like at some point we'll get past that concept, but I do think it will probably always be there to a certain extent.
that's fair. That's fair. I can definitely see that. All right. I don't have a whole lot else for you. Where do you want to send people?
Yeah, so you can head to my website. It's livelikemad.co, not com. And then find me on Instagram and TikTok at livelikemad.co. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's just my name, Maddie Boumet. But yeah, be sure to check out the Content Lab, which will probably be out by the time this episode is out. Connect with me if you have questions. And I love going back and forth with voice notes in Instagram if you're like working through a specific question. So that's always open as well.
All right, perfect. There we are.
Awesome.